Okay, boys and girls, this is Miss Betsy. Time for Sunday school. I'm trying something totally different. This is going right onto YouTube instead of me recording it and sending it. But anyway, so I hope this works. Okay, one thing I wanted to do is I forgot last week. Do you remember our sheet with all the numbers on it? And I told you then that a couple of the numbers were going to be important. And one was the 6 because God made everything in 6 days. And the other one was 7 because on the 7th day he rested. Now what I meant to do before we finished up was go back to number 6, and I would like you to do something 6 times and then rest in between. Like for instance, jump 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now you rest. Okay, how about touching your toes 6 times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and rest. Okay, how about reach up high? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and rest. Okay, clap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and rest. Okay, how about flap your arms? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and rest. Okay, now you can do this one later. I want you to hug 6 people or animals or stuffed animals, but 6 different people, animals, stuffed animals, mom, dad, dog, cat, guinea pig, chickens, stuffed animals, but 6 of them. And after you've hugged all 6, and that includes brothers and sisters, after you've hugged all 6, then you rest. That was the game we were supposed to play last week, and it doesn't go with any of my other stories, so I wanted to do it now. All right, so the story today has to do with, let me move this. Can you see, can you see my little critter here? No, you probably can't. Anybody know what that is? He looks much bigger when he's close to the camera. Okay, the story has to do with a snake, a tree, and I'm using an apple because in this story, the Bible doesn't really say it was an apple, but a lot of storybooks have an apple in this story. So we've got a tree, some kind of fruit, and this guy here. He looks pretty scary when he's up close. All right. So you know Adam and Eve lived in that beautiful garden, Garden of Eden. Everything was there, and the sun was always shining, and flowers were growing, and birds were singing, and it was a wonderful place. And Adam and Eve could have stayed there, but they did something wrong. Now, have you ever done anything wrong? Disobeyed a rule at home or at school? And when you disobey a rule or you do something wrong, there's usually consequences. Now, you older kids, you probably know what consequences mean. For the younger ones, it means when you do something wrong, you have to, I don't want to say pay for it, but sometimes you're punished. Sometimes you lose something or something's taken away, or you're sad. It's not a happy thing, it's a sad thing. So Adam and Eve in the story, they disobeyed God, and so they had to pay the consequences. Now, if you want to look the story up in the Bible, it's Genesis 3, and it's the whole chapter. Not very long, but it's the whole chapter you can read. And there'll be a little more details than there are in our story. But that's what we're talking about today. Now, here's Adam and Eve, and they don't look very happy. They look very, very sad. All right, so let's see why. Adam and Eve lived in the beautiful garden God had created for them, the Garden of Eden. One day, as Eve walked through the garden, the serpent, that's this guy here. There he is. Oh, he's scary. I like him. The serpent, asked her, "Why won't God let you eat from the trees in the garden?" Eve said, "We can eat fruit from all the trees except one. God warned us not to eat fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden." So here's the tree in the middle of the garden. Now God told them that if they ate that fruit, they would die. The serpent said, "No, you're not going to die, but what will happen is that you will know right from wrong, good from bad, evil from good, just like God does." So he said, "You will become wise like God." Eve thought about what the serpent said. The fruit looked really good, and she really wanted to become wise. You know, wise means very, very smart. So Eve reached up and she picked the fruit. She took a bite and ate it, and then she gave some of the fruit to Adam, and he ate it too. But as soon as they had eaten it, they knew something was wrong. They had disobeyed God, so they hid. God soon found them. Now, let me ask you, can you really hide from God? No, God knows where you are all the time, and he knew where Adam and Eve were. But he said, "What have you done?" Adam blamed Eve and said, "She gave me fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden, and I ate it." Eve blamed the serpent and said, "The serpent tricked me and I ate the fruit." God was not happy about what they had done. He said to the serpent, "Because of this you will crawl on the ground from now on. Other animals will not want to be with you, and people will not like you." God said to Eve, "Because you have disobeyed me, you will have great pain each time you have a baby. Your husband will be your leader, and you must obey him." God said to Adam, "Because you have disobeyed me, you will always have to work hard to grow food. From now on, the soil will produce weeds and thorns." But God still loved Adam and Eve. He forgave them for what they had done. Then he sent them away from the garden to find a new place to live. They can never again come back to enjoy the fruit that grew there. From that day on, Adam and Eve understood God's forgiveness. They knew that God was fair and wise, and they knew he loved them very much. So here they are. God gave them clothes, and he took them to the entrance to the garden. See, there's thorns and spiky things growing. And once they went through that door, an angel stood at the door so they could never go back in. So they knew they had done wrong, but they knew that God still loved them. So our memory verse today is God sent Adam and Eve away from the Garden of Eden. And that's the verse that goes with the story. Can you say that with me? God sent Adam and Eve away from the Garden of Eden. Now the verse that we have for the whole month On the seventh day, God rested from all his work. And that's from our story last week. On the seventh day, God rested from all his work. And then the one for the quarter, which is all 3 months, which takes us all the way through next month, November, God created heaven and earth. Can you say the second one with me? On the seventh day, God rested from all his work. And the quarter memory verse, God created heaven and earth. Okay, so we know about our buddy the snake here, and we know about the fruit, and we know about the tree. And as I said, when you look this story up in the Bible, it goes through the whole thing with maybe a little more than what we talked about. Now, you have choices to make. When you're playing a game, say a board game or something, there's probably a way that you can cheat a little bit to make sure that you win. Or when you're playing a game out in the yard, maybe you could do something to make you win. Or you could get mad, or you can yell at somebody. That's not very nice, is it? But you made the choice and you yelled. And you little ones, when you're playing with or even big ones, when you're playing with a bunch of your friends, somebody's playing with something that you would like to play with. So you just take it. Here, I'm going to give Mr. Snake another bead. There we go. So those are choices. But you have to remember that for every choice you make, there are consequences. And consequences are that thing that you have to pay for what you did. Sometimes, I don't know if you ever get grounded. When I was little and I would do something bad, like I would stay out too late, or I'd do something to make my parents mad, I'd be grounded. And that meant that I couldn't go out and play with my friends. I couldn't go ride my bike. I had to stay inside. And I wasn't very happy about that. Sometimes when you make a choice that something you shouldn't do, sometimes it costs money. For grown-ups, sometimes it costs money when they make a bad choice. Now, you probably have free time at school. And in our story today, this is Paul and Miss Raymond, his teacher. And Paul likes to play on the computer. So when they have free time, there's several things around the room they can do. It looks like somebody's listening to music. There's books they can read. There's pictures they can make. But Paul really liked this game on the computer. So when Miss Raymond would say it's free time, that's the first place he would go. But there's a rule that you can only stay for, I forget how many minutes it is, we'll see in the story, and then you have to go to something else. Paul didn't want to leave the computer, so let's see what his choice is. Okay, class, said Paul's teacher, Miss Raymond. It's free time. Choose your favorite activity, but remember to share. Paul knew exactly what he wanted to do. His favorite free time activity was playing computer games. The class had one computer to share, and it had lots of games. Paul played a different game every day during free time. As Paul sat down in front of the computer, Miss Raymond tapped him on the shoulder. Now, Paul, don't forget to share the computer with the other kids. Only 15 minutes for you, and then it's someone else's turn. Okay, Miss Raymond, Paul answered. 15 minutes wasn't very long to get to the final level of alphabet quest, but Paul would try his very best. It seemed like only 2 minutes had passed when Miss Raymond tapped Paul on the shoulder. It's been 15 minutes and your turn is over, Paul. It's time to find another activity and let someone else play on the computer. Paul sighed with disappointment. He had only finished 2 levels. He looked around. It sure didn't look like anyone else wanted to play on the computer. Miss Raymond, he asked, can't I just play for a few more minutes? She shook her head. No, Paul. We want to make sure other children have a turn. And I want to make sure you find other things you like to do. There's an open space at the coloring table. Paul sighed and walked over to the coloring table. Tomorrow he would have to start all over on the first level of Alphabet Quest. After Paul sat down, he looked over at the computer desk. Hey, nobody else was playing over there. Why should he keep coloring if nobody else wanted to turn on the computer? Maybe he should just... No, that wouldn't be a good idea, Paul thought to himself. It's not my turn. Maybe I'll listen to music at the music table. Paul walked over to the music table, excuse me, and put on a pair of headphones. He tried to listen to the songs, but they weren't nearly as much fun as playing Alphabet Quest on the computer. Paul looked at the computer again. Nobody's playing with the computer yet. He looked around at his classmates. They look busy. Doesn't look like any of them want to play with the computer today. Paul looked for Miss Raymond. She was sitting at her desk reading. She won't even notice, thought Paul as he quietly walked back to the computer desk and started playing Alphabet Quest. Just as Paul had completed the third level, he heard his name. Paul, said Miss Raymond. I told you that your turn was over. Uh-oh, thought Paul as he turned around. Miss Raymond and all the other children were looking at him. I'm sorry, Miss Raymond, said Paul. It didn't look like anybody else wanted to play. I know, Paul, said Miss Raymond, but that's the rule. It's recess time, but you'll have to stay inside with me because you broke the rule. Everyone else, it's time to go to the playground. Paul sighed sadly and sat down at his desk. Through the window, he could see his friends playing on the playground. Paul, do you understand why I made you stay inside? Miss Raymond asked. He nodded. It's because I broke the rules. When we disobey, there are consequences. You're right, Paul. But do you know how do you know so much about this? I learned about it in the Bible, explained Paul. Adam and Eve broke God's rules and had to leave the garden he made for them. That's a good lesson to remember, said Miss Raymond. Maybe tomorrow, during free time, you can teach some of the other children how to play on the computer. That sounds like lots of fun, Miss Raymond, answered Paul. He knew he had learned a good lesson. So Paul broke the rule. He played on the computer longer than he was supposed to, and there were consequences. But do you think Miss Raymond was going to stay mad at him? No, she didn't stay mad at him. She wanted to be sure he understood what he did wrong. And she suggested that maybe tomorrow he teach some of the other kids how to play on the computer. So that would be fun, wouldn't it? So the thing to remember is that we have to think about choices that we make. No, I'm going to do this later. We have to think about the choices that we make, and we have to remember that there are consequences. Okay, now this, where'd the stickers go? Here's Eve in the garden. It looks really pretty. See, flowers and sunshine and clouds, and look, there's the serpent. See him up in the tree? And there's that really pretty, gorgeous fruit that she thought looked so good, and she wanted some. So remember, this is the first page off your book. We'll put the stickers on. There's the fruit. And it goes up here at the top. Then, here's Adam. He was standing a little ways away, watching what was going on. So there's Adam. And here's one of the creatures that lived in the garden. Probably a lizard or something like that. Do I have him upside down? I think I have him upside down. I do. There he is. Okay, so he can go right here. He's climbing the tree. And then on the back, here's the picture of Adam and Eve leaving the garden. And here are the questions that you want to go over with Mom and Dad and talk about the story. And you can read the Bible story. Remember, it was Genesis 3? You can read it again. Okay, now here's, on this page, this is the back off your book. Here's Paul, here's Miss Raymond, and what's he doing? He's on the computer. That's when she caught him. Everybody's looking at him. But he knew he did wrong, and he understood that. And Miss Raymond understood, too, that he really didn't want to do that. He just made a bad choice. Okay, now turn the paper over, and the other stickers for today are these sad faces. So I want you to look at the first picture here. It looks like she is giving her a cupcake, but look behind her back. She has one already. She doesn't need another cupcake. So I want you to think, is that making a bad choice? Yes, it is. So we're going to put one of these sad face stickers on her. Okay, now how about this guy over here? He's got his arm up. It looks like he's going to hit his friend. He's making a good decision or a bad decision? Bad decision. So let's give him a sad face. All right, down here. Oh, look what he's doing. And I'm sure you know, you never, ever, ever play with these matches. Never, ever. Because something can catch on fire and burn something you didn't want to burn. So is that making a good decision or a bad decision? Bad, so we're going to give him a face. Now, let's see. Ah, there's somebody else. She's standing by the cookie jar. And look behind her back. Look what she has. She has a cookie. And I bet it wasn't timed. She wasn't allowed to have a cookie. So did she make a good decision or a bad decision? She made a bad decision. So we're going to put an unhappy face on her. Now you can do yours. You could do it now with me, or you can do it later if you want to. Okay, so, and I also, to go with today's lesson, this is a picture that looks like the one that I had, but you can color it in. You can color these spiky things. You can color in their clothes and their sad faces. This is Adam and Eve leaving the garden. Okay, so we're going to play kind of teacher says. It's like Simon Says, but instead it's teacher says. So if I say teacher says, you go ahead and do it. If I don't say teacher says, it means you don't do it, just like Simon Says. Okay, teacher says clap. Teacher says hold up your right hand. Teacher says hold up your left hand. Teacher says touch your head. Teacher says touch your shoe. Teacher says lift your arm over your head. Stomp your feet. Okay, how many of you stomped your feet? That's pretty tricky. I'm sorry, that was a game. I wanted to play a game and trick you a little bit. Okay, so the thing to remember, see if I can do this upside down again. I've got the, I'm using the smelly markers again. This one is green apple. The tree, I used the cherry one. And, well, I didn't color the apple, but anyway, it smells wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to write 2 words here. No, I think I'm going to write 3. What's the first word? You know that's a G, right? I don't make G's very well upside down. God. I have to make this smaller. All right, I made that pretty messy. Can you tell what it is? God forgives me. God forgives me. Now, one thing about that. You know that God is going to forgive you because He loves you, but does that mean that you don't have to worry about your choices? That once you make one bad choice and God forgives you, you're in the clear, you don't have to worry anymore. Is that how it works? Now, God loves you all the time, but that doesn't mean that you don't think about what you do and your decisions and your consequences. There's going to be consequences if you disobey God, if you disobey the rules at school, the rules at home, the rules in a game. And the consequences make you sad. And sometimes it lasts for a while. But God still loves you. And you learn from your bad choices. You learn you shouldn't do that again. And what do I want to say? You learn to not make bad decisions. But if you do, that's what I wanted to say. If you do make a bad decision, God will still forgive you. And your parents will still forgive you. And your teacher will still forgive you. And your friends will still forgive you. And still love you. So that's what I want you to take away from this story today. Is that even when you do wrong, God still loves you, still forgives you. But you need to think. You need to think about the choices that you make, whether they're good choices or bad choices, and then learn from them, and then remember that God forgives you. So I'm kind of rambling here. I'm up to 27 minutes. I guess these lessons are going to be a little longer than my stories because we're doing more, so I hope you don't mind. Okay, so I think we took care of everything. All right, so I hope everything is going well at school. I know at Level Green Elementary you're working from home. That's one of those things we talked about, that God's with you anyway. No matter whether crazy things are going on or not, God is still there with you and taking care of you. So let's say our prayer about choices, and then I guess we're going to wrap it up. Okay, dear God, help us accept the consequences for making wrong choices. And let's help us ask God to make good choices. Ask God, God help us. Can I start over? I don't know why I'm messing up so badly today. Let's start over. Dear God, help us accept consequences for making wrong choices. Dear God, help us to make good choices. Help us remember, God, that even if we make a bad choice, and of course we want to make good choices, but even if we make a bad choice, we know that you forgive us and you still love us. Dear God, thank you for always being there for us and helping us when we need you. Amen. Okay, oops, I just stuck my paper into the snaky. Okay, so here's our serpent. Okay, so I want to thank you for coming to Sunday school. I hope that you enjoy it. We're going to get some craft things for you to make, and I'll make up some more packets that your mom or your dad or you can pick up in the church office, but I'll let you know when they're ready. Halloween's coming. We're going to talk about what you're going to be for Halloween. That's a good choice too, to follow the rules and walk around with lights on and wear your mask, and we'll talk about that too. So next week's story is about a family. Now, when Adam and Eve left the garden, they had a family. And from that family came all of our families. So that's where our story is next week. Thank you for coming to Sunday school. I hope this worked because I'm doing it right onto YouTube instead of recording it and sending it to Miss Sherry. So I hope this works. I'll find out, I'm sure. I want everybody to have a good week. And once again, thank you for coming. See you next week.